So let's talk about what the project is. It's a written report that you write yourself. It should be between 4,500 to 5,000 words, and it aims to answer a question by doing research. And the reason that you do the project is to help you learn how to do academic research. Let's talk about what makes a good or a bad project. Let's look at the bad project first. So one of the problems with a bad project is it's too general. It's not specific enough. You've only got 4,500 to 5,000 words. Now that should be on a very clear, specific issue. If you write about something very general, like why do people drive cars, then you're never going to answer the question properly. It's too general. Now within that type of question, which type of car? Where? Which country? When? Today? In the past? What type of car? Four-wheel drive? Sports cars? Family cars? And people drive cars for work, for pleasure, for family transport. It's too big. You need to have a much more specific question. So that's the problem, is too general there. It's an academic piece of work, so you need references. You need to learn how to reference using APA. If you don't know how to do that, you can have a look at the University of Portsmouth library. There's a section on there which tells you how to do referencing using the APA method. One of the problems is students sometimes just give their personal opinion. That's more like an essay where you give your opinion. What we want here is a research project where you collect some data, you do some reading, you talk about what other authors are saying. It's not just only your opinion. That's not to say you can't have an opinion, but it should be based on the research you've done, the reading you've done, the data collection you've done. This is a major problem. You want to avoid this at all costs, otherwise you risk failing. If your project is copied from somewhere else, if you've plagiarized your project from somewhere else. So, in a sense, these sections go together. That the section here on referencing and plagiarism, they go together, because if you include references correctly, then that's going to help you to avoid being accused of plagiarism, which means presenting your work as somebody else's, vice versa, someone else's work as your work. Lack of organisation. If your work is badly organised, if it doesn't have clear sections, if it doesn't follow the format of a research report, that's going to cause problems. So you need to follow the usual format for a research report, and you'll see examples of how to do that. You'll learn about how to do that in the classes. Examples of lack of organisation. Problems include it's difficult to understand what you're trying to find out. It should be very clear what you're trying to find out from the beginning. You should have a clear title, clear research questions that you are trying to answer. Again, if you don't know what you're looking for, it's going to be difficult to explain that to somebody else. So you need to be very clear in your mind what you're trying to answer, what your research questions are. Let's go on to next section. Methodology is not feasible. You need to have a way of collecting information that is doable. If you want to talk to the Queen and find out about the royal family, it may not be doable, it may not be feasible. So therefore you need to make sure that what you're going to do is realistic and doable. You need academic references for your ideas. So this is a problem some students have. They reference not only the words, but they miss out the ideas. So whether it's your words you've copied from somewhere else, or you've taken ideas from somewhere else, you need to give the reference and say where the ideas come from. You need a bibliography of all the sources that you've used in your project. So at the end of the project, everything that you've written about should be listed in a bibliography, sometimes called a list of references. Too long or too short? It needs to be 5,000 words, plus or minus 10%. Lacks analysis. If your work is too descriptive, If you're not taking ideas and figuring out what they mean, explaining what they mean, what you've learned from your ideas, then that's going to be a weaker piece of work generally. It will lack analysis. You need to analyse your data and explain what you've learned from it in relation to your research questions. Hand it in late. If you hand in late, you're going to get a maximum of 40%. Make sure you know the deadlines. If you don't hand in at all, then you may not be allowed to do the unit again in a resit. You must hand in something on time. Missing sections, this is about organisation. You need to follow all of the standard sections for a research report. Let's talk about what makes a good research report. Well, it's really the inverse, the opposite of what we said earlier. Clear aims, clear research question or questions, a methodology that helps you to answer your questions, a methodology that is related, gives you the answers that you want. It can be done within the time frame, so you need a proposal at the end of teaching semester 1, and then you're going to have your project due during semester 2, so check that, teaching block 2. You need academic references. You need to learn about how to do that, and we look at that on the unit. You need to show how the literature review that you do, the literature you've read, is related to your topic. So you're going to read about your topic and explain how the papers you've read, the journals, the books, the websites, how that relates to your topic, how that relates to your research question. It analyses the data. It doesn't just describe, but it compares data and tells the reader what you found, how the ideas all link together, not just in a descriptive way, but in a way that answers your question. Has a bibliography at the end. One last point, is aware of its limitations. You're unlikely to do a perfect piece of work if it's your first attempt at doing research. However, if you've learnt from your mistakes and you're able to recognise some of your mistakes and talk about them in your research, that's good. That's a good thing to do. It shows that you've learnt something from doing research if you're able to talk about your limitations.